So you're on board with starting simple, but it doesn't seem to be working. Let's troubleshoot that. It'll really boil down to a handful of scenarios. The first possibility is that you didn't pick the right buttons. One version of this is that you haven't quite identified what this game's really about at a core level, so you end up missing an essential tool. An example would be straight up not having an anti-air in your toolbox in Street Fighter V. The other version of not picking the right buttons is that you have identified what moves you need, but you picked bad ones for the job. An example of this would be that you did correctly identify that you need an anti-air in Street Fighter V, but you picked Chun-Li's stand medium punch to do it. Possibility 2 is that you're not executing on the plan properly, i.e., you identified the fundamentals of your chosen game and you picked good moves for the job, but you're not using those tools well. With our anti-air example in Street Fighter, this might mean you correctly identified the need for an anti-air and you even picked a good button for the job, but you still can't stop people from jumping. You'll figure out whether the problem lies with the plan or with your execution of the plan as you troubleshoot. Let's really break down our example. First, identify the problem. My opponent is jumping constantly, I can't stop them. Then you search for a solution. You might discover that it's a plan problem. One version of this is realizing, oh, I don't have an anti-air in my game plan at all, so I'll add one. If you do have an anti-air in your game plan, but it's not working, it's hard to know whether the problem is with your plan, meaning you picked the wrong button, or your execution, meaning you picked the right button, but your timing or spacing is off. Go into training mode and test it out. Depending on the results, you might find yourself thinking, oh, the button I picked isn't very reliable after all, so I'll pick a different one, i.e. a plan problem. Or you might determine, this button is 100% reliable, so I'll work on improving my timing and spacing so that I can get better results. There is another possibility which is fundamentally different from the first two problems. Let's say you're certain you correctly identified what kind of basic game plan you need, and you picked the right buttons for your character, and you're doing a solid job of executing on the plan. Despite all of that, what if you find yourself barely getting any wins at all? What does that mean? Let's go on a brief tangent. Single-player games can be easy or difficult. The battle is between you and the game as it's designed. It's possible to have 100% of players win or 1% of players win. The difficulty stems from the game. In a player versus player one-on-one game, exactly 50% of players win and 50% of players lose. The complexity of the game doesn't really matter at all. The math will always stay the same. The difficulty comes from your opponent. Fighting games themselves aren't inherently difficult. It's the fact that you're fighting human opponents that makes it hard. A lot of people play fighting games with their friends and feel pretty confident they're solid at a game, but then venture online, get blown up, and think, I guess fighting games are way harder than I thought. But the game didn't change, your opponents did. If you're playing something popular, like the current iteration of Street Fighter or Tekken, the player base is going to be big, and there will be people of all different skill levels online. In that sort of game, you can get wins online early with a simple strategy, and then slowly build and progress from there. Street Fighter V has a big enough player base with enough low-level players that from very early on, you can start seeing some success. In Guilty Gear, you have to accept that it may be a very long time until you can win, because everybody still playing the game is a solid player. It takes a lot of mental toughness to start that journey and accept that you might not win a match for the first year you play the game, and be okay with that. I have a ton of respect for anybody who can do this. It isn't easy, but it's absolutely possible. Just make sure you recognize what you're getting yourself into. Let's recap. If you're not seeing success, there are 3 possible reasons. 1, your game plan needs work. Either you haven't figured out what you need to be doing, or you have, but you're picking the wrong moves to do it. 2, your game plan is good, but you're not executing on it well. Or finally, 3, the player base for your game of choice is made up of seasoned players, and it's just going to take a lot of time and effort to catch up with them. The next video isn't completely set in stone, but there's plenty more to come. Thanks for watching. For more information or to help support me, here's where you can go. See you next time.